Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the studios of Grafton Community Television at 26 Providence Road. This is Meet the Candidate. I'm your host, Bob DeToma. My guest this afternoon is running for Select Board. His name is Lucas Remillard. And in the interest of total disclosure, he and I serve on the Veterans Advisory Committee and the Trustees of Soldiers and Sailors. Now that we got all the legalities out of the way, welcome aboard.
Thank you for having me.
Tell the folks at home who you are and your thought process of deciding to run for Select Board.
So I'm Lucas Remillard. I've been in the Army Reserves for over 2 decades. I joined, when I was a kid. There was 9/11, and most of the kids I grew up with, we were all on fire to join. So the minute I turned 18, signed up, joined the military. I served one tour in Iraq. From 2006 to 2007. I even earned some commendations for my service overseas. Married to an amazing woman who some people may know, Jessie Remillard. She worked with the Attorney Generals for the Feedback Earth issue that they had, the smell. So she kind of spearheaded that. That's the type of family we are. If we see things that are not right, we step in and help and do what we can. I'm a father. I have 6 kids that are amazing children, and I currently work for Raytheon Technologies as a senior supervisor of logistics. Prior to that, I did 17 years working for the government, mainly the Department of Veterans Affairs and the Department of War, doing contracting, logistics, and budget control.
And at one time you were at Natick Labs, too.
Yep, so that was part of the Department of War.
Okay. So walk us through the thought process of, not just I want to give back to the town of Grafton, but how long did you think about, I think I'm actually going to do this, I'm going to run for Select Board?
I initially thought about it when Anne-Marie, Andy, and Colleen ran last time.
Okay.
I was at a conference, and this lady was talking about, there's a lot of people that they're sitting on the bench, and they need to get in the game, and it really, hit home for me, and I was like, I should maybe do this. I brought it up to Jess. Should I do this? And we talked about it. At that particular time, it wasn't the right thing. But, recently with everything that was going on, I was like, I have a skill set in budgets and government, especially, dealing with government budgets. We kind of have the same thing that municipal has. We kind of understand that not all money is green. So certain funds I know cannot be used in other types of funds, like they keep separation. So that was a skill set. I was like, I think I could really help bring sound judgment and leadership, especially from my military service, to the Select Board and to help Grafton continue to be a great town that it is. I know my wife and her family have been here for generations. I've been here, actually tomorrow, which is our anniversary, I'll have been here 5 years. And I love Grafton. Out of all the towns that I've lived in, this is the best town I've been in.
So I know you've been about town trying to get your face out there and trying to get people comfortable with the idea that you're running. What are you hearing from people when you meet them?
A lot of people go, what is the Select Board? Some people don't even know what it is. And I end up explaining it to them. And, some people ask me my opinion on the override, because I know that's the big thing that's coming up right now. They ask what my skill sets are, what leadership capabilities do I have, what makes you think you can run and be on the Select Board. And, I bring up a lot of my budget experience, working for the VA and the Department of War. I've managed budgets in the, just north of $200 million per year. So I have a very good understanding of large sums of money for budgets and how it's allocated. So I explain that to them, and I also tell them, for like the military, because they'll ask me the questions of, well, what committees have you served on? And I'll be like, I'm the vice chair for the Veteran Advisory Committee under you. I serve on the Trustees of Soldiers and Sailors Memorials, and then I also serve on the Information Technology Committee. And to me, I view those as ways, my time in the military, I've served the country, and I serve on these committees and want to run on the Select Board to do my service locally for my community. my family and friends that live here.
So how are you picking and choosing your locations for some of these meet and greets? Are you being invited to speak, or are you
I'm reaching
setting
out to
up
them
yourself?
Yeah, I reach out to them and just tell them that I'm running and I'd like to set up there. And sometimes they'll ask me like, "Oh, what do you think?" or whatnot. But a lot of times they're just like, "Yeah, fine. That's if you set up." And I talk with the owner for a little bit, get to know them. I've done stuff at Val's and Uncommon Cow, and have a couple other locations that I want to potentially work with to do some, not meet and greets, but kind of have people come and chat with me and get to know me. I'm much better as a communicator in person, talking face to face. I've met with several people where they'll just be like, "Hey, let's meet up and chat," and I'll be like, "Absolutely," and we'll meet up. We'll walk around the common or wherever they want to meet up, and we'll just sit and chat.
And what do you think, other than the override, what are some of the other things that people want to discuss? You've already mentioned your experience or why you want to
Yeah,
run this.
so one of the big things is business. My thoughts on big business coming here, or, getting rid of open spaces. And I believe that, part of having a town like this, that's one of the things I love about it, is how you have this historic look to it. Like when I drive through the Common, I'm like, this place just looks absolutely beautiful. Me and my wife will walk around the Common. We use the library, and it's amazing. And I definitely want to help in any way I can to help bring business here, but I also want to keep the small town feel of what is Grafton. So, I know some people bring up, getting rid of, they called it green space, which is kind of what I call it too. I'm like, I'm not wanting to get rid of, I don't want us to be Boston, where like the only green space is the Common. Like my wife and I, we go through all the trails, and we go, all the beautiful things that Grafton has. Her and I just love bringing our kids to go experience that. It's like one of the great things I love about Grafton. So I tell people, like, I want to help in whatever way I can on the select board to bring business to help offset the tax burden on, people, myself, yourself, Bill. But by doing it in a way that it doesn't take away from what is Grafton.
One of the things that I think about often when I'm watching meetings at home or here in the studio, and I often think, if I was in that person's shoes, how would I attract business?
Yeah.
I mean, because when it comes right down to it, unless you're the CEO of a major corporation, you're kind of at a disadvantage.
Yeah.
So not just you,
Yeah.
but everyone who serves. And that's probably going to be one of the major challenges that any candidate would
Yes,
face.
I would agree.
And then, having put all that out on the table, how do you attract business?
I mean, really, it's just make it so, businesses want to be here. I mean, I know I happen to see some stuff about potentially like McDonald's or something come in, and, that may help bring some extra revenue that's helpful to the town. I know we have some other spaces that are vacant, so trying to get those utilized and have businesses go in there to help with the tax base. But, I feel like, again, like you're right, like, we're on the select board, like we're not out there submitting, documents to get a business here. They have to kind of want to be here. So it's a hard position where you're like, I want to bring business, but how do we do it?
Right. And you can't reach out as an individual. You have to reach out as
The entity
the
of-
group. Right.
Yeah.
Correct. It, as I said, it's a challenge.
It is a challenge.
What other boards and committees have you been looking at, and what are you picking up on?
I've been watching, again, like the finance committee, been watching that because I know that's been a thing. The school, I know they're struggling with, paying their teachers, and, I believe education is important, and I believe teachers are important, and them getting paid is an important thing. And
your kids are in the school system?
no, my kids are homeschooled.
Okay.
Mainly because, not that we dislike the school, we're very open on, if my kids tomorrow I want to go back to public school, we'd be like, okay. You know, my two daughters, they're in public school. You know, my wife's kids, they're...
Do you ever see your kids coming to you and asking you to send them back to public school? Do you think that would ever be a conversation?
I mean, maybe. I mean, they enjoy, like, part of the reason why we like Grafton is that we can homeschool, and we, you know, my wife does a very hard job with, you know, getting them educated, but the nice thing is that we get to go visit all the things that Grafton has, like the Clock Museum and all the trails.
Or she brought them here?
Yeah, she brought them here. She brought them to the fire department through there. She brings them to, like, I think they did a walk through the police station. So she's, you know, getting them out and about to enjoy what Grafton has to offer. And I believe that public school is extremely important because not everyone has that option. You know, a lot of people I know, they can't homeschool, or they can't send them to public school, or they can't send them to BVT. And I believe that having kids have a public education is an important thing for a town to have and to fund it. You know, the hard part is, you know, just like when I worked for the government, there were times where, like, everyone thinks that the government just has an unlimited budget, but I would get a set number and I would look at it and be like, I don't know if this is going to suffice. So I had to figure out, like, how do I make this work? You know, sometimes for, like, medical supplies, it would be, all right, we use this vendor. They're, you know, $8, $9 more expensive. So then I go and find a similar product that's cheaper from maybe a local place or another company to help offset the difference. So I know there's you know, ways that we probably could, you know, cut somewhere, but, you know, again, it's not as simple as just here, and here. Like, there has to be discussions, and I know with the override coming, it's going to be discussed at the town meeting on the 11th. So.
So you spent some time watching finance committee meetings.
Finance and school committee.
Yep. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're working on under the title of IT committee? Oh, I'm sorry, information technology.
Information technology committee. I know right now we're working on trying to do like a use policy for AI. So we've been talking about that. You know, with the board, I've sort of developed a template for a potential, you know, use policy to be used in Grafton for AI for the committees, you know, for note-taking and such things. We're using several other towns that have already had a policy done, so we're kind of looking at what they have and then what we have and trying to make it so it marries up for what we need. You know, because some towns may have it a certain way, and it's like, that works for them, but it may not work for us. So me and several members are working on our own individual kind of use policies, and then we will, when we convene again, we'll discuss and go over, like, this is what I got, this is what you got. Let's see if we can come up with a, you know, a middle ground, or maybe take all three of them and figure out how do we make it into one document that's useful for the town.
Yeah. Can you give me an example of something that would be written into the document about AI policy? The do's or the don'ts?
Yeah, so it'd be, you know, like certain things that are not supposed to be public, you know, you put it through AI. You know, if you were doing notes, like, you wouldn't just submit it through AI and then just submit it to the town. Like, if you use it, like, if you were going to use it for notes, like, you have to verify, physically go through the notes and ensure that it's correct.
It's not a perfect system.
It's not, no.
It might be in...
It might be in a few years.
I was just going to say, in 5 years, it might even be in less, but it still has its problems.
You know, and a lot of businesses use AI for note taking, so it's definitely not a new technology where nobody knows what's going on. You know, I know the place I work at, we have like our own AI system that we can use it for note taking or making documents. So it's widely used. It's just, how do we use it in the municipal setting versus private sector, or like even the Army has their own now too. They have like several different ones, like Project Darksaber and a couple other different ones that they use for AI.
You can't run and hide from it. It's out there.
Yeah, it's out there. I mean, everyone's using it for something.
Right.
So.
Okay. Well, believe it or not, we're pretty much to the end.
No.
Yeah.
I want more.
No, we can't go on unlimited.
Can't go. Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
Yeah. I'm going to turn you to the citizens of Grafton. We've already indicated which camera is yours.
All right.
So the last couple of minutes is your opportunity to talk to them.
All right. Hi, Grafton. I want to thank Bob and Bill and GCTV for having me here this afternoon. I hope to bring to Grafton a steady and forward-thinking leadership style that will help enhance our select board. I know right now it's a tough situation that we're in, and I feel that I can do a great job at that. Like I said, I've 22 years in the military. I had to do a lot of hard decisions and leadership, and so I'm thankful for everyone's support, and I hope that I can earn your support. Just a reminder that we have the town meeting May 11th at 7 p.m. at the Grafton High School, and then we have the election May 19th, 2026, and then we also, I just want to remind you that if you're not registered to vote, to go out and do that, so you can vote in this, the town meeting and the election. So, thank you, Grafton, and God bless.
My guest this afternoon has been Lucas Remillard, who's running his first time for Select Board, and he currently serves on a number of committees in town. You've been watching Meet the Candidate. On behalf of all the talented people that work here at Grafton Community Television, thank you for watching. I'm Bob Detoma.